Hi, everybody. I'm so glad to see you. It is such a cold, rainy fall day here in Arkansas. So I hope where you are, the weather is better. I'm Dr. Margaret Rutherford. This is my fifth year of actually, it's my sixth year of doing Facebook Lives for the Mighty. And I'm so glad to be here with you today just to tell you a little bit about me as some people join. I've been a clinical psychologist since 1992, and I've been in practice since 1993 in Fayetteville, Arkansas. And uh, we started this, like I said, 5 years ago. And when they invited me on to speak about what I'd written a book about, or was writing a book about at the time, a perfectly hidden depression. And so I really have loved doing this, and we're trying to work out some different things for the future, but we'll be here. So I have a podcast called the Self Work Podcast, and I've loved doing that as well. And so today we're going to be talking about, hey, Rick, how are you? We're going to be talking about making plans and managing moods during the holidays. And I wanted to do it really early because sometimes, these kinds of conversations don't start happening until, December the 1st. And I think it's way too late for that time. Hey, David, nice to see you. So, and the reason why I think that is because some of this really does involve even some practice, some of my ideas, and some planning. Um, and given the fact that I don't know about you, but I have been hearing from my friends, my clients, and in some ways myself, that we've all gotten a little bit out of practice with more than a little bit, some of us, with social anxiety. Hey, Anne. Well, we're not out of practice with social anxiety. That was misspoken on my part. We've just gotten out of some of the social atmosphere. And I remember going to something that was outdoors a couple of weeks ago, and I felt, and I'm an introvert, but I kind of know how to act like extroverted and make small talk and everything. And it was really, it was more difficult for me because I'm out of practice. We're all out of practice. So, hi, Michelle. So I really hope we can talk today about how to approach the holidays. It might be Hanukkah, might be maybe you don't celebrate the holidays. Um, are we able to watch this at a later time? I'm very much interested in this as the holidays affect me so badly, but I'm out at the moment. Oh my goodness, Christy, I'm so sorry about your father-in-law. I know it'll be on my Facebook page. That's facebook.com/Dr. Margaret Rutherford. And you can watch it there. And I'm sure it'll be on the Mighty too. Mental Health on the Mighty. So, yeah, it'll be there for probably at least, I don't know, a day or two, something like that. So, yeah, of course you can. And, I'm so sorry again about your father in law, and please take very good care. Hi, Noel. It's your first time viewing, and hello. Well, hello to you. Um, Sydney, it's planning for Sydney, I think your name's real familiar to me. It's planning for the mental toll of the holidays that is already messing with my day-to-day life already. That's exactly what I wanted to talk about. My number one, here I've got this list. I've got my list. Plan less holiday. And what I mean by that is all of a sudden people start talking about the office party and the neighborhood party and the book club party and the school party and the family get together and what are you going to bring and all of this stuff. And I really think it's so important, and you can practice to do this, um, is to learn how to just say, this is not a year I can do that. Um, and you don't really have to explain yourself. Um, you can also share it to yourself or on your timeline to view to get. Oh, that was answering her question. Okay. Um, so I think that it's lovely to be invited places, and it's always good to let them know if you can come or not. So, but you don't have to feel pressured to do everything that you might want to. Again, remember, we are still in a pandemic. And I don't, this is not a political place or a focus on what you believe health wise. In fact, I want to touch on that, and then that may be the next thing I talk about. But I think that when you can say no, or when you limit yourself to say, I usually do X, Y, and Z, or 2 years ago, back in 2019, this is what I did. And um, I think it's something that you can say, I'm going to, in October, well, maybe, or early November, I'm going to cook a bunch of, I don't know, lasagnas, and I'm going to put them away, and I'm going to take lasagna everywhere I go. That's what I'm going to do. You begin to mete out what what you're willing to do, what you can do joyfully, but then if you bring the same uh, lasagna, who cares? That's going to be what you do. So, ugh, what you are going to bring really makes my anxiety go through the roof. So, decide what you're going to take, make a whole bunch of it, freeze it, and take it. If that's jars of honey, if that's whatever, just make it easy for yourself is what I'm trying to say. um I have a friend who wrote a post several years ago, and she got asked to be on like Good Morning America or something, because the post was all about like 30 things you won't get at my house during the holidays. You If you bring me a gift, you won't get a gift. You will not smell holiday cookies baking in my oven. You will not you will see a wreath and whatever, some, and maybe at the Christmas tree, if you see that. Last year, my husband and our son couldn't be here for Christmas, and we managed to put up a tree and lights, but we never put up the ball. We never put balls on it. We never decorated it. It just was there. And that was okay. That was our 2020 Christmas. And you know what? People would come over, and well, no, people would wave. And so, that was just the way it was. So you really want to honor the fact that, maybe you're somebody who absolutely loves the holidays, but if you're here on Mental Health on the Mighty, you're probably someone, I mean, it's very highly likely you're someone who struggles with depression or anxiety or bipolar disorder or some sort of psychotic disorder, or whatever you're suffering with. So I really think that that's why you want to start now. It's October the 27th. Look ahead and say, what do I want to do? What will bring joy to my life, and what will not? And you practice. There's a word I do not say very well. I'm going to make myself practice. No, not today, not this week. And you literally practice. Before we go on to some other things on my list, I want to talk about the pandemic a little bit, because this is what I'm hearing. And in fact, I will give you an example from my own family. We had a wedding this summer, and the bride's family, and the groom was in our family, and we had all been vaccinated. In the bride's family, most of them had not been vaccinated. Some of them had had COVID, but they still, that was their belief. And so what I began hearing, and actually I asked the bride and she said, yeah, my family's doing it too, is, if he or she really cared about me, then they'd get the COVID shot. Or if he or she really cared about me, they'd have this party outside. Or if he or she really understood, and we're taking things very personally. And there's strong feelings on either side. And then not only are there strong feelings on either side, but you're beginning to make it about you. And frankly, there was a part of me, and there was another family wedding this summer, and there were some decisions made there that, it would have been easy for me to say, well, if they really loved me, or if they understood, or whatever. And so I tried hard not to do that myself, so that I didn't get all worked up about not only just the difference between us and how sometimes that can cause family conflict or make things more difficult, But that what I did not want was for what I did not want was for things to turn really nasty. And personalization of any kind of response will certainly keep it that way. So that's my little sermonette about the pandemic. Again, there's nothing we can do about the differences between us. We feel strongly you're probably not going to change anybody's mind if you argue with them. So try to, keeping family conflict. Again, it's just, I think it's good to try not to take it personally. Okay, so you decide way ahead of time what's possible, and then you limit what you do to what, again, this is the holiday season of 2021, and it's going to be different than 2020 and different from 2019. Let me make another point while I'm thinking about it. A lot of people felt very robbed in 2020. Probably all of us felt somewhat robbed in 2020. That there was a lot of isolation going on. Again, I didn't see my son for 14 months. That was the longest since he'd been born. And I guess because he's not in the military or anything. So that was very hard. But I don't think it's a good idea to turn around and then try to make up for 2020 and 2021. It's just going to be its own holiday season. And so I think that if you just keep it fairly normal, or even, like I said, even begin to say, I r- because, I'm afraid of COVID, or because I've been less social and I'm a little more anxious about social gatherings, or whatever it is, that you don't try to make up for 2020 with 2021. It probably will not work. It's kind of like that, what happens if you were pregnant, and those of you who've been pregnant, and you went through 1 year without, you went to the office party and you didn't drink, so you drink like twice what you normally drink at the office party. Not a good idea, right? You don't get to make up for time lost. So, and hopefully you gain some things in 2022. Um, so I wouldn't try to make up for lost time. And psychologically, that's just too heavy a weight. Okay, let me get back to my list. I also think it's really important. Cherie, you said, I agree, try not to take it personally. It's so hard to do, though. Yes, it is. Um, it is. Um, I got COVID this summer, principally, I believe, because um, there had been a family choice made about the kind of funeral arrangements that they had made. You know, I completely understood why they wanted to make those funeral arrangements the way they did. Um, and actually, somebody else in my family got COVID too. So I'm lucky. I didn't have any kind of long uh, issues with it. Um, and so, what was it a little difficult for me just to not take that personally? Mm, I hope it wasn't as difficult as maybe it would have been before I'd been a therapist. Because I see a lot of people take a lot of things personally and tell themselves stories about, if my husband really loved me, if he knew how hard I work, if she knew, how tired I get, then she wouldn't, or he wouldn't, or blah, blah, blah. And I hear that all the time. And so it's really important not to do that. So I try not to do it myself. Sydney, it helps me to plan, get presents early so it isn't something I'm stressed about finding, and it helps me not to overshop. Yeah. And I hear that there's a very pragmatic reason for that these days because their supply chain is all bottled up. And so, um, maybe your family can decide this is just a simpler Christmas. The thing I heard on television was, well, now get your stuff now because the supply chain is, the stores are going to be running low if they have it at all. Or maybe just decide to make it a simpler Christmas. Um, that's fine. Or Hanukkah or Kwanzaa or whatever you're celebrating if you celebrate. Um, simple sometimes can be very good. Um, and I think that trying to keep in mind that, again, you don't have to make up for last year is a good idea. Okay. Um, the second thing on my list, and I already just talked about the third and fourth one, is to build in non-holiday activity. We can get inundated with Christmas music or ho 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 or whatever. And so if you plan in things for November, December, January that are non-holiday activities, like go bowling or it kind of depends on what your family enjoys, but play a game or decide your friend group is going to read a book that has nothing to do with Christmas and get together and discuss. Just whatever can kind of give you a break from holidays. Obviously this year, 2019 and 2020, there are many of you who've probably lost someone from COVID or some other reason. And it's got to be you're grieving. And so, or you just have regular, someone, I mean, people tragically die all the time or whatever. And so, um, Rick brings up a great point here. I'm gonna get to it in just a second. So in a way, if you just kind of decide, all right, I'm going to I'm gonna do stuff that has absolutely nothing to do with the holiday, and I'm gonna really enjoy that and make sure you have that settled in your week or your month or whatever. And Rick says not having non-holiday activity makes my holidays feel like a farce. Such an interesting idea that really if you do everything holiday-ish, then it becomes almost kind of, I don't know, like a trip to Disney or something. You know, um, it's not that a trip to Disney isn't fun, but nobody smiles that much, and uh, anyway. So I think that it kind of anchors it in reality, if I can say that, which is a good thing. Oh, Becca brings up a good point. My family is so toxic that I've had to disconnect from them all to stay relatively sane. It still makes me feel sad, but not as horrible as being in their presence. The holidays can feel super tough. Um, I actually have people practice words like, or answers to questions like, "What are you doing with your family for Christmas?" And I have them practice. I'm a, Thanks for asking. I'm estranged from my family right now. Or I haven't seen my family in a long time, but I appreciate your interest. It is the unusual person who will pry. Some people will pry, and then I have them practice this. Again, I appreciate your interest, but I'm really not in a place to talk about it. Period. Those kinds of boundaries are really important. I promise you, there are probably more people that are estranged from their families than you recognize. I hear about it all the time, and it is not. It happens for many, many, many reasons. Some for you, Becca, like, my family is just so toxic, I've had to distance myself from them, and that can happen. And so if someone walks up to you and just asks a simple question, they're really not trying to be, they don't really realize what's going on, then, you practice an answer so you don't have to walk around going, "What am I gonna say? What am I gonna say?" Just practice it and then let it go. Um, Cherie, you have the same situation in your family. Yeah. Um, you know, I think that I've heard some people say, and there used to be a movie with Holly Hunter in it that I would watch every holiday to kind of remind me what real families are like at Thanksgiving, and I've forgotten what the name of the movie was. But it's kind of nice to watch movies that don't paint a family like everybody's just happy and healthy and wonderful. I wish I could remember that movie. Somebody Google it. Or Thanksgiving movie with Holly Hunter. Um, is estrangement common amongst those with X order? With X order. Rick, can you ask that question again? I'm not sure what you mean. You mean a certain disorder? Is estrangement common amongst those with X order disorder? Okay, I'm not sure. Well, where there's been abuse or neglect, obviously, that those situations often, where there's alcoholism, addictions, parents can be estranged from their children. Children can be estranged from their parents. Grandparents can be estranged for various and sundry reasons. So, it's um, it's not always sad. It's sad that it happened. The reason for it is sad, but the fact that it happens is sometimes the best thing. I often say to people, if someone is not capable of giving you a, a healthy love, then keeping on expecting it is like going to a hardware store and looking for ice cream. So you just really don't have to, keep on wishing for that which is not going to happen. I'm gonna tell a story here a second. Vicky, you could also practice the question like, "What are you doing for Christmas?" without specifically stating with your family, being just in general. Oh, yeah, I like that. I like that. Just saying, what I'm doing for Christmas is I'm knitting my I'm knitting a blanket. I don't know. I don't knit. So, but and it's that's my goal. That's my goal to get that done. God, one of those non-holiday activities, right? Um, and so, yeah, you can just talk about it without answering anything about family. That's a great idea. Good for you. Oh, the story I was going to tell. Family boundaries are often a reason why families are estranged from one another. And what I mean by that is either there's a lot of intrusiveness from one family or a family member, or they just don't honor your boundaries and they're very intrusive, or there's age old family conflict or whatever. But I remember this one woman who came in years ago, and very nice woman, well dressed, well spoken, very likable. And she told me that her children um, wouldn't come to her house anymore for Christmas, and that she didn't understand why, and that she'd always been very generous with them. And she was actually becoming friends with a family in her church. And this younger family found her to be delightful. And she said, I feel like I have to give up my family. Well, there were some interesting things to that case. For one thing, as I dug a little deeper, it seems like her children had set a boundary with her adult children who had children of their own, had set a boundary with her and said, you give too much. We're teaching our children simplicity. We're teaching our children to be appreciative of small things. And we would ask you to not go overboard with presents. And they were very definitive about that. Well, so they decided they hadn't seen each other in several holidays. And so the adults showed up with their kids, and she had this lavish outpouring of gifts. And they walked out. And she looked at me and she said, which was maybe a little precipitous, but anyway, very dramatic, but anyway. And she said, "So why, I'm just giving them presents." And I tried to help her explain, it's the boundary that you didn't respect. For them, it's their children and they ask you to do something specific. Well, she still didn't understand. And so she only came in one other time. I don't think I was her favorite therapist. And she said, "Well, I found this family in my home and my home church, and they just think I'm the best thing." And I thought, okay, well, good. That's good for her. I mean, that if that's going to be helpful to her. But I don't think she missed the point. These boundaries, these things that we ask of one another to respect. when those are crossed or when those are intruded upon, it does not feel good. I mean, for example, if you have an alcoholic uncle and you say, "Hey, listen, would you not drink around the kids?" And he goes, "Hell no, I'm going to do whatever I want to do." Well, that's a boundary violation. So, anyway. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about some of the things about grieving at the holidays. Um, my parents died in 2007, a week apart. The week before Christmas, my dad died on Christmas Eve, and my mother died on December the 17th. So, although they were older, um, their deaths were unexpected. So, it it's always is ever since then, it's been a very poignant time. But as I often remind myself, or get reminded sometimes, December is another month of the year. And so basically 1/12 of all deaths approximately happen in December or around the holidays. And so there are many people who are in that boat. That's, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, a day, Christmas Day, whatever, they lost a loved one. So I think that, and then again, with the pandemic, there's lots of grieving going on. That's especially because of either very sudden deaths or early deaths. And um, so we've got a lot of grieving people. And I think that one of the things to recognize is that nobody's grief is going to look the same as anybody else's. And that it may look like anger, it may look like busyness, it may look like, it can look like all kinds of things. So just to try to be very understanding of what somebody's grief may look like, and to not pull out your yardstick and say, well, your family member died 5 years ago. Why are you, so all I'm trying to say is that grief is very unique, and there are all kinds of triggers to grief, and what yours are not going to be what somebody else's is. So trying to understand that. I also want to talk about light therapy a little bit. If you have seasonal affective disorder, that's kind of interesting. Research doesn't really back up seasonal affective disorder, because given that the idea behind SAD, it would be that if there's less sunlight in a country, the less sunlight there is in a country during the day, well, obviously during the day, sunlight, that their level of depression would go up. The population would be more and more depressed, and that's not true. So there are all kinds of new theories about seasonal affective disorder. Things like, if there seems to be less seasonal affective disorder when you live in the region or of the country or of the world where you grew up, that there's something about the timing of all that helps you not have seasonal affective depression. But certainly people who have it will tell me, as soon as I feel like, the chill in the air, and as soon as the sun starts setting, more and more quickly, and then it's not, my day is getting shorter, I just start feeling down. But light therapy can be very, very helpful, and you can get a light for therapy anywhere from $20 to $100, and it can be really effective. So, Lionel, I have mental issues myself. I have ADHD and Asperger's. I'm also a gay male and had problems with my stepmom since she was a homophobic Republican supporter who tried to impose her will on me. She married my dad. She died of bone cancer. Okay. Well, let's be sure we understand that not all, people who are homophobic can come from many different political views. So let's make sure that we recognize that. But it sounds like certainly your relationship with your stepmom may have ruined several different holidays. And she was dogmatic, and that didn't help your issues, or probably your relationship with your father. I mean, your father. So I hope there's been healing there, and that that you have been able to, and you and your father have been able to move beyond that, whatever kind of damage that stepmother did, because of her own views. Um, so um, let me see. I do also want to quote a figure to y'all that actually I've been reading in several different sources that 19% of Americans, now I know there may be people who are not here from the United States, but 19% of Americans are saying that they are struggling with some sort of mental issue for the first time in their life. Oh, Lionel, I'm talking to my dad again. Good. I'm so glad to hear that. Um, good. So that's one out of every five. And so, I think that again, you want to be aware of that. You want to be aware of your teenage nephew who just seems to be spending a lot of time in his room. You want to be aware of um, your wife who um, just is walking around feeling so pressured all the time. You want to be aware of your friend with bipolar disorder that you realize they're acting like they used to, and they've been really stable, and now they're not, or they tell you they're not sleeping. Um, so be aware that not only are the people who have been coping with mental illness are struggling some, but the people who have never had it and they don't know what it's like. It was interesting at the beginning of the pandemic, the people who had already had trauma disorder as a part of their history actually did better because they already had skills in place of how to handle trauma. Now, over time, they also didn't do well, but excuse me. But so people are trying to deal with things they have never dealt with before, and it's trauma. So just be aware of differences in people, and they may look angry or agitated or isolating, but try to look underneath that. Vicky, what is light therapy? Is it like a special lamp or light bulb? I've only heard of this once before, but never asked what it actually was. Yes, it's a very special kind of light that emits the same kind of sun or light waves, or that you get from the sun. Not the damaging ones, but the ones that are build vitamin D and that kind of thing. And so you literally, I mean, like I have this little light right here that that makes me look pretty. um and so it's a light, and usually it can be really small like this one, or it can be a larger light, and you literally sit it in front of you at your office, at your workplace at home, and it just literally shines light on you, and it can mitigate the effects of having less sunlight during your day. I have several patients who've used them, and they swear by them. Um, so and again, um, there are various kinds. I don't have a specific maker of any of that, but you can hopefully find that on our friend Amazon, or even wherever you shop. I've been struggling with mental illness my whole life, been trying to figure out how to fix myself. Hi, Justine. Um, well, if I'm someone, I understand. Um, and I don't know what kind of mental illness that you may have been diagnosed with, but what strikes me, if you've tried to fix yourself, you may be trying to go it alone a little too much. There are Facebook groups where you can get information. There are, NAMI, the National Association of Mental Illness, has usually monthly meetings in cities where you can go and get support for having a mental illness. Again, you may be trying to do this alone. If money is an issue or you don't have insurance, there are often um, free health clinics uh, where mental health clinicians volunteer their time. I work at one here in the Northwest Arkansas area, and so I think that some of that struggle you can be helped and supported in it if you let people know more about who you are and what you're doing and what you're struggling with. Um, you're welcome, Vicky. Cherie, I honestly think we could all use a little therapy right now. We've been through so much. Sending my love and prayers to all that are coping during this difficult time. Um, that's a wonderful, kind thing to say. So I'm so glad you did. Rick, I have schizophrenia and just wish to be overlooked. Um, not sure what that means. Maybe that you don't want it brought up, or you don't necessarily want people to look at you and say, "Oh, he's schizophrenic." That you want them to see all of you. And I totally understand that. Nobody wants to be seen as a thing or an illness. They want to be seen for who they are. I remember I had rotator cuff shoulder surgery, whatever, several years ago, and I heard myself referred to the rotator cuff in bed 4. And when the nurse came in, I said, "By the way, I'm rotator cuff, bed 4, and my name is Margaret." She started laughing. She goes, "Oh, that's what we call people." I said, "Yes, but I'd rather be called Margaret than rotator cuff in bed 4." So, um, Lionel says NAMI is in Rockford, Illinois, where I live. Yeah, it's all over the place. NAMI is a great organization. And Rick says, "Overlooked. No, I wish for it to be acknowledged." Okay. Well, um, I hope your family or your friends probably, sometimes friends are better at doing that than family is. Um, Especially if your parents, if that if they missed the disorder or they didn't help you or something like that, sometimes friends are actually more likely to give you the kind of support that you're looking for. So I hope you'll find that. All right, guys. I'm going to go on and say goodbye for this one. We'll hopefully be back with you in November, and I just try to talk about a range of topics, and so it's usually on the third Wednesday of the month, and that would be something like November the 15th or 16th, I think, next month. So we'll see what we can bring to you, and I appreciate all of you being here. Please take good care of yourself and the ones you love, and keep it simple, keep it easy. Plan non-holiday activities, plan ahead, and try to take care of yourself. All right. Y'all take care. Bye for now.